If you want to know peace and joy, you must discover and be who you're meant to be. But what if a person doesn't know, I ask, and is still searching? That's fine, said Peace. My friend Joy and I love to ride along on a good adventure. The point is that a person needs to be in conversation with life, with God, if you will, and with their highest self, in order to discover their path. The discovery is part of the path. The problem is that instead of seeking their path, people often try to become highway engineers. They try to draw up their own plans without being in conversation with their unique destiny. I know something about that, I explain. I knew people in seminary who wanted to be ministers, and they were clearly not cut out to be ministers, and teachers and other people tried to tell them, but they were determined to do what they wanted, so determined that they failed to realize that it was not their calling. It's not that they didn't have a calling, it just wasn't ministry. And today I occasionally meet people who are miserable with their lives. You know, they thought they wanted to be a doctor, an engineer, a social worker, or in some cases, they didn't care what they did as long as they made a lot of money. But they've come to discover after reaching their goals that they're still not happy or at peace. Ah, says Peace, but this is about much more than a person's job. This is a lesson about life and marriage and children and much more. Nietzsche said, love your fate. The point is not to get what you want, it's to love what you have. The key to discovering peace is to embrace who you are and what you have. Now, sometimes people find that they're not in the story that they wanted, but yet it's the story they're in. People who get divorced or whose parents get divorced, it's not the story they wanted, but it's the story they're in. People whose parents develop Alzheimer's, or whose children fall into trouble or illness, victims of violence and cruelty and neglect, it's not what they wanted. People who lose a loved one prematurely due to an accident, or addiction, or suicide, or disease. It's not the story they wanted to be living, but it's the one they're in. And peace. Peace comes as a companion when a person stops longing to turn back the hands of time and learns instead how to look forward, asking, now what do I need? What do I need to live fully and to do my part in the family of things? How can I live in harmony with my life and my calling, the one I've been given, rather than trying to be in complete control of my destiny? Peace says, I will sit with you when you finally decide to take God off the witness stand and stop trying to get an explanation for why, and start to live your life as a mystery unfolding rather than as a play that you're in charge of directing. It's the difference between getting what you want and living your calling despite what you get. Feeling the need to give peace a chance to see that I know something about the subject, I interject. It's kind of like Lot's wife in the Bible, who looks backward and is turned into a pillar of salt. If we spend our time looking back at what we wanted and did not get, we end up becoming frozen and stuck like a pillar of salt. But if we face forward and embrace our future, then peace, you become a part of our life. You've got it, said Peace, having finally shed some of her condescension. She went on to remind me that this is the Advent season in the Christian world. It's a time of anticipating the birth of Jesus, who is called in the Bible the Prince of Peace. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, I said. He was born and he died, and many think he was resurrected, but where's the peace that was promised? What am I, chopped liver? Said Peace, with a tinge of hostility in her voice. Okay, calm down. Point well taken. I was just trying to ask how Jesus could still be so revered as the Prince of Peace when the world continues to be such a bloody mess. Well, Reverend, have you ever noticed how the Christmas story is filled with people who don't get what they want, but they get what they need? Well, do you mean like Mary, who I guess did not choose to become pregnant out of wedlock? Yes. Or like Joseph, who certainly did not want to learn that his fiancée was knocked up before their wedding. The whole thing was an embarrassment, and it did not go according to their plans. They certainly did not want to have to travel to Bethlehem for the census to be taken, any more than you wanted to be on jury duty last week. Right, Reverend? Well, yeah, I can only imagine with Mary being great with child and all. Peace explained with some conviction that riding a donkey across the desert is uncomfortable even when you're not 9 months pregnant and about to go into labor. You sound like you speak from experience, I say. The smile returned to Peace's face. Remember, she continued, finding that there was no room in the inn and having to sleep in a manger with all the animals and eventually giving birth in a manger was not what they wanted. Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that the Christmas story has to do with learning to embrace your divine purpose and calling despite the fact that you don't always get what you want? You're a quick study, Reverend. She teased. I don't know about that. I still don't understand the title Prince of Peace. Everybody back in Jesus' time thought that a Messiah would come like a king and usher in a time of peace and justice. But it didn't happen that way. 2,000 years later, the world still doesn't have much peace or justice. I stop her at that moment and say, except on those very rare occasions when an honorable judge like one we have here in Tulsa puts aside power and prestige and personal gain and courageously takes a stand to do what he knows is right in his heart, even when it's not popular or politically expedient. But we all know how rare such people are. We sometimes wonder if we would be so noble if we were in their shoes. And that's why we applaud and we salute such people.